Advanced English Arabic Learning Session 93. Shrike is a songbird with a strong hooked bill, often impaling its prey on thorns. A wisp of smoke spiraled up from the trees. He expects the figures to spiral down further. The latest consequence of a troubling downward spiral. Imports outweighed exports, and resultant trade deficits made a downward economic spiral. She's nothing but a mercenary little gold digger. I wish you'd been here when he died and I needed a shoulder to cry on. My family gives me a shoulder to lean on whenever I'm feeling hopeless and confused. She bought me an orange juice and spiked it with vodka. The trainees were coaxed into doing boring work. Her lovely hair had been coaxed into ringlets. Ceiling joists are used to tie the rafter feet. The president would hire almost anyone who had the gumption to ask for a job. He had gone to the board of directors with his new robot design and cut a deal. The administration is hoping to cut a deal with Japan. Cut a deal comes from the ancient ritual of cutting animals in half when making a deal. Damsel in distress is a young woman who is in trouble and needs a man's help. When I got a flat tire, I had to wait for my boyfriend to come and help me, like a true damsel in distress. What an amazing experience to be able to meet your Shiro. He saved a damsel in distress in a wine bar from a group of lustful men. An icon installed within the sanctum of the temple. He ushered her into his sanctum and gave her something to drink. High roller is a person who gambles recklessly or for high stakes. The police caught wind of the illegal drug deal. He has been handed a blank check to do exactly what he wants. His head was impaled on a pike and exhibited for all to see. I am confused since you tossed that grenade into my life. Please forgive my tardiness, I had some very important business to attend to. His victory resulted from his judgment about when to change his wet tires to slicks. He went back to a climate more congenial to his cold, stony soul. Tom had finally badgered her into going. Badger is not considered dangerous for humans. They are extremely reluctant to come in contact with humans. This is a mean type of theft by ruthless people preying on the elderly. I skived off school to go to a skeevy Vegas motel. I pretended I was ill and skived off on Monday. You can show off your widow's peak by slicking your hair back. Her bobbed hair was slicked back, accentuating her green eyes. Bracken is a tall fern with coarse-lobed fronds. The competition is planned as a dry run for the World Cup finals. An apex predator is a predator at the top of a food chain. Sperm whales are terrified in the presence of killer whales, orcas. After 3 marriages, many men would have been more than ready to call it a day. It's past 5 o'clock, so let's call it a day. His intractability will prove to be his downfall. The police are straining every nerve to bring the miscreants to justice. What happened next was a phantasmagoria of horror and mystery. The uptick in sales started with the COVID-19 pandemic-19. She'd become so accustomed to the British Roadster. An investigation is underway to ascertain the identity of the accused and nab him. He pressed down on the 2 nubs on top of the phone. A detailed account of what has been achieved. A lively account of Offenbach's score. The barman was doing his accounts. He has been called a poacher turned gamekeeper. With a bit of luck, we may receive some advice later from our poacher turned gamekeeper. She is in the school. She is at the school. At 85, he is no spring chicken. I don't know his age, but he's no spring chicken. Vermicelli is a traditional type of pasta round similar to spaghetti. Vermicelli noodles are made from wheat flour and contain gluten. It would serve you right if Jeff walked out on you. It serves him right after the way he's treated her. Alice is good at buttering up her superiors, and that's how she mostly gets promoted. Don't try and butter me up in order to get privileged information. We do not want to stand idly by and do nothing. Men are standing idly by awaiting our decision. It serves you right. You were not nice to him. Serves you right. I told you not to drink so much. Buttering up people is a good way to get them to help you. You'll have to butter them up a bit before they'll agree. I can no longer stand idly by and let him take the blame. How was the race? Kate asked idly. She had no idea about the rarity of her condition. To take the morning off was a rarity. At low tide the sands are exposed. Many newcomers are exposing themselves to injury. Students were exposed to statistics in high school. He has been exposed as a liar and a traitor. A dip in cool glistening water. Athletes over the age of 50 are rarities. Snow is a rarity in this part of the world. The rarity of the disease makes it difficult to diagnose. The commando positions were being heavily mortared. The first brick and mortar of Google store to open in New York. The liquid is stored at below ambient temperature. Ambient music played softly throughout a restaurant. The ambient orange glow during a setting sun. We made a quick pit stop in York before continuing on our journey. He decided to lie low for a while after the report came out. At the time of the murder he appears to have been lying low in a barn. She is not a criminal to have to lie low for something like this. In a rare moment of lucidity, the senator sided with his political enemies for the good of the country. He has a few lucid moments every now and then. A wake is a social gathering associated with death, usually held before a funeral. A wake is a more informal time for visitation and remembrance of the dead. A funeral typically contains structured rituals and is often religious in nature. The body is present at a wake, either in an open or closed casket. Police uncovered a scheme to steal paintings worth more than $250,000. He's a schemer who always finds a way of getting what he wants. Charger radars to catch tankers that ply during band hours. The guns were deployed to flail the village with their projectiles. They tried to shield Johnson from the projectiles that were being thrown. A large and obtrusive works where ammonia is produced. How long participants could walk on a treadmill without becoming fatigued. Detained in hospital to be treated, against their will. Correlation coefficient between adjacent pairs of axes. She quit her job to go gallivanting around the globe. She had made gallant efforts to pull herself together. A gallant gentleman came over and kissed my hand. He launches himself into a gallant career of amorous intrigue. It would be galling to lose your job because of a dispute with a customer. The park shot to fame after a BBC documentary revealed its rugged terrain. He rose to fame in the 90s as a TV presenter. He shot to fame when he appeared at the first U.S. sport climbing competition. Albert Finney rose to fame in the British cinema of the early 60s. The houses were covered with a thick mantle of snow. Alpine lady's mantle is an herb. It is used to make medicine. People take alpine lady's mantle for fluid retention. Inevitably the cold snap was followed by the big thaw. A thaw in the frosty relationship between the two countries looks remote. A vast expanse of Siberia is undergoing an unprecedented thaw. That win was a bit of a fluke. Its influences have pervaded the whole economy and the whole financial system. Films made in the aftermath of the apocalyptic experiences of World War I. Iron deficiency can retard mental development and impair physical growth in children. Mentee is a person who is advised, trained, or counseled by a mentor. You hung a picture on the wall, then you hung out at the mall. Royal assent was required in order to dissect the bodies of hanged felons. Endogamous marriage within the kinship. This pattern has changed somewhat. Parents will have to dig ever deeper into their pockets to pay fees that inexorably rise year by year. He escorted them, flailing their shoulders with his cane. An agent who exceeds his ostensible authority will generally have no liability to his principal. The latter will not be bound by the unauthorized contract. He was recused when he referred to the corporation as a bunch of villains. He asked the judge to recuse himself from continuing to hear a case. There's no doubt that the bionic arm has transformed his life. I grabbed the snake by the neck, gave it a yank and put it straight into the bag. Uttering a muttered curse, I yanked off my shirt and ripped it into strips, which I bound tightly over the wound. This apprentice goof, we will sadly mourn his passing. On the contrary, it created opportunities to soak up the exploding population. Loosen the surface of the soil to allow moisture to soak in. I soaked in the bath for 20 minutes to moisturize my very dry skin. The beef was marinated in vinegar. She coiffed her highlighted hair and extensions in waves. She brushed back her wispy bangs. A finely coiffed lady would gas herself with hairspray. The manager was heard to compliment the other team's good play. Prince George expected to be complimented with a seat in the royal coach. Complimentary breakfast consisted of a stale bun and a cup of milk. Tuck Shop, a shop on school premises, that sells confectionery and snacks. The tasty crisps have proved popular with school tuck shops. To scrap school tuck shops that encourage unhealthy snacks. The colonel was coming toward her, his gun tucked under his arm. I thought the kids were safely tucked up in bed. Snuggling into freshly laundered bed linen is one of life's little pleasures. From an acute angle, he tucked the ball to the corner of the net. She knew her husband had a mistress tucked away somewhere. The end. Coming next. Session 94.